because it's such an awkward, uncomfortable experience, and they feel like they can't talk to their husband about it or anything, and, I mean, it's a whole different other discussion, like, "Oh, you only have sex if there's the idea for procreation involved," and then, like, because that's who we are, just baby-making machines, whatever, um, but this is where it goes into historically how, um, that's what it is. You know, purity culture was like you have sex for procreation, and that's what it is. And you don't enjoy anything of it. It's just, go lay down on the bed for 30 seconds and hope you get it over with quickly. Um,
Well, and like that's what a lot of women did, especially,
right.
I was gonna say noble women, probably all women, honestly.
Hmm.
Noble women in particular, because there was so much pressure to have an heir.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, you have throughout history these weird cuckold situations where people are in the room to make sure it's going right or well,
It
or
was like, yeah, like Marie Antoinette. She hated her husband, and they like, I guess, like historically, because they would record it, there were only like four times her and her husband had sex. It was like, but who would ever want to do it? And it's like, why do you think people were sneaking up with some like farm boy,
oh, hell
back in
yeah.
the day?
At least the barn is private. Like,
And those farm boys were probably ripped and very much more attractive than the guys wearing all the wigs and the makeup and everything. But
that's
just,
such a
just,
valid point.
just saying, just saying. They wanted a real man. You just go.
Oh, so like I kind of I started with like the history part, right?
Yeah,
And then I started like Googling like, okay, when was like purity culture like at its peak slash like
like the
when
60s is what it really took off during the sexual
yes,
revolution. Like, well, actually, it was the response to it, I would say, was more like in the 70s
yes,
and in the 80s,
a little
but
bit later.
the 90s and into early 2000s is like when it was really at its peak, like when you and I would have been teenagers. So you could
Yep,
all
Miley
figure out our
Cyrus, the Jonas Brothers, everyone was making
Demi Lovato.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in for the podcast with Angela. That was just a little teaser. If you want more, please subscribe to the Patreon. Help out a single mom. I will be doing a lot more collaborations that will be Patreon exclusives. If not, and you want to just keep listening to free episodes, hey, I like that too. One way you can show your support for this podcast is by liking and sharing it with friends and family, sharing it on social media. And again, just to remind you, this podcast is bad therapy because it is not a replacement for actual therapy. I share, obviously, a lot of my own personal thoughts and opinions on things, that a clinician would not share in a clinical setting. And I do that in the name of, ending the stigma around a lot of these things. But please, if you struggle with things that we discuss on this podcast, if you are deconstructing and trying to become the best version of yourself, I absolutely recommend individual therapy with an LPC, LPCC, even LCSW, licensed social worker. We're all here for you and to help you. So, by all means, keep tuning in, and we'll see you next week.